Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so today we want to talk about some um, hopefully recommendations we have for the school system because we're very, very concerned about what's happening with a lot of our children. All right. So one of the things we want to talk about, one of the things we want to talk about is um, a boarding school for because there's a lot of children that are in homes that are very, very unfit. So we want to talk about having a raising funds, getting the investors and nonprofits to raise funds for a boarding school. And we call it boarding school because they're going to live. It's not going to be a Francis boarding school home. It's going to be extracurricular activities um, where they work, live, and play. All right. So, Miss Martins, do you think that's a great idea for get our first Cayman Islands boarding school?
Yes, I would definitely suggest something of the sort because there are those children who are not functioning in mainstream
Yeah, talk
school.
louder for
Yes. So, uh, what when we say a boarding school, do we mean that it is just a day school, or it's a living
yeah,
where you're there full time?
right, full time,
Full
because some of
time.
the kids are in bad homes where there's drug
Right.
use, and the
Yes.
children need to come out of those homes. Yeah,
Yes. But that is something definitely that could be addressed because we know the environment that many of these young people are coming from, and they're not just getting the education that they deserve, and they're not getting ready for the workforce out there. They're not getting the skills that is needed. So this is something that we should could definitely consider and definitely pilot for a specific time, whether it's for a year, 2 years, 5 years. But it's definitely something that we need to do because what we're currently doing isn't working for a large percentage of our young people. So
forever.
we have to try something else. That's that's the point there. We have to investigate and look at different options for the different children that whose needs are not being met.
Yeah, I think there's parents that truly, I think there's parents that probably loves their children, but they have a substance abuse problem, so they cannot watch and monitor their children well. So some of the kids are peddling drugs, selling drugs, using, and the parent cannot be a good parent because they have a substance abuse problem. Yeah? So kids need to be taken out of that environment. Now, laptops. I see in the US where again they're pushing to take laptops out of at least out of elementary school because they see the addiction is happening with children at a young age. They're becoming addicted. We see the um, physical issues that they're having with their bodies and their spines from a young age. Ask the physiotherapist because they're hunched over from five. Um, um, what time they start elementary school? Yeah,
Four.
4 years old. Okay, so from a young age, and look, I don't know if you guys seen on Instagram and stuff, where some of these children are going home and they're fighting their parents and mashing up everything when the parent says you can't have the laptop, you need to come off the screen. So it's an addiction. So I really, really, really feel even laptops need to be pulled out of primary school, at least elementary school. Yeah. What's your take on that? One to you guys.
Y- y- Yes, well, definitely it's a big push now to have screen time reduced because what is happening, um, the very young children that's being given screens, it's having an impact with their communication
Yeah.
skills. So they're needing more speech therapists, um, speech pathologists to intervene for these young kids from such an early age. So screen time is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Also, in some parts of the world, it's being legislated where they just don't have access. to screens until 13 years of
Wow.
age. That's a
Are you
fact.
serious? From just
Yes.
phones or even the laptops and stuff?
Any type of screens.
Any type? Oh, really?
Yes. So,
Because of the depression, the anxiety, and the
right.
hunched over. You imagine a
Yes.
child from 4 years old sitting there for hours
Mhm.
of the day,
Yeah.
hunched over at a screen. Good. I think
Yeah.
you were telling me, was that Denmark?
It's Denmark that has banned cell phones from in schools.
Okay. Okay.
They're not allowed in schools, period.
Gotcha.
Yes, and many others of those nations up there, they're just not allowed to have cell phones at school. And in France, they're not allowed to have screen time until 13
Good.
years
Good.
of age.
Good.
Yeah, that's happening.
Because
So
they're seeing the effect, right?
that's right.
So
So
why are
Cayman
we?
needs
Yeah.
to follow suit
When
with
it comes to
what's
stuff
happening.
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they obviously they've seen and I totally believe that you can start a child learning the basics of computers from 4 or 5 years old. I don't have a problem with that. But all day long, they're learning by laptop. So that's concerning. And again, I don't mind them being introduced to technology from a young age. I don't have a problem with that. But sitting there all day long is having a bad impact. Go ahead, sir.
Well, the world we know now is definitely in a world that we didn't know before. And technology, we do know that telephones and laptops, computers, radiation is affecting everybody. Brains, and like Mrs. Martin said, communication skills. Whilst I do believe that kids must be introduced to the latest technology, I think it has to be definitely the time. A great country to follow suit is also Japan. They're ahead with
yeah.
every single
Yeah.
thing.
You see how they're
But instead of them having computers in their classes at a young age, they're actually teaching their children life skills, manners, respect,
Right.
cleaning their school
and how to keep themselves clean, how
Yep.
to
and their
act,
school and their school.
and their school, their surroundings, their home, their clothing, their shoes, making sure they have manners. Because one of the things that is very important eventually when they grow up and become adults is definitely that first impression that makes a lasting impression. So I do believe that, you know, our education system needs to emulate something from the Asian community. And I know that the present minister did go to Singapore. He went over to Finland and he went over to Russia. And I know he was very pleased with what he saw there being implemented in many of the schools, and he worked extremely hard to bring a lot of that here. It's a pity that his time was cut short, and of course, what I don't like in my country is that when someone has a great idea and is going to serve a greater purpose, because of our egos and because of, you know,
It
political
wasn't
gain,
their idea.
yeah, and their idea, and they're not getting the credit
support,
for it.
the support.
No,
and
the credit for
okay,
it.
Credit, okay.
They want to tear it apart and tear it down, and that's exactly what happened, I think, with the present minister's ideas that he tried to implement when he came in 2009. Um, I will say that I've worked with several ministers, and on the whole, that minister did do a lot for our science, our math, and our English. And I think it's a very challenging job for him now because he now have private schools that are here and they're owned privately, and what they're doing in their schools we're not doing in our primary schools, and there's always going to be that conflict. I don't believe that we should have ever had that. We should have always had that kind of control where you do as we do in this country, you do as we say in this country. When you come here, you abide by our rules, our regulations. And if you don't like it, then you know you can always go back to where you've come from, start what you want there. But so long, once we've started that segregation into our lives and into our country, this is where the problem comes in. Because how do you then get all of the horses back into the gate and follow what is really what we really want to implement and to help our children throughout our country? And I just think it's going to be a very hard challenge. Not impossible, because nothing's impossible with God, but it's going to be a very hard challenge.
but we need to start somewhere. And phones. Now, the law is no phones in school. I've always heard that, right?
Right.
But the kids are being defiant, and they're still doing it. I think what needs to happen is to have the NDC and have the youth department, who has the clientele, come in the morning time. So I'll say phones and bag searches is another recommendation we have. Call those departments in early in the morning. The kids get in about 7:45, and have kids have their bags searched for phones and for drugs. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's also something that needs to be implemented, especially if they're coming from that kind of area or background. I think it's very important. I don't think phones should be in schools because it's a disturbance. It's going to create friction. It's going to take away from them learning and concentrating on what they should be doing. Again, the radiation that we now know what a phone is handing off to the body is just something we should not have in our schools. Period.
Yeah, well, it is the school, the policies of
the school.
of the school to not have cell phone in school.
Right.
That's a
Right,
policy.
right.
However, children
Are
do.
still doing it.
They still do
They're
it,
breaking the rules.
and
Pretty much saying,
yeah. So some institution just turn a blind eye to it, and
well, I think a lot of it, again, teachers try to do this and try to enforce, but instead of having parents support them, a lot of times they're called and they're cursed out by the parents. And they're like, and teachers say, but, oh, I got to be able to contact my child. Okay, there's a school, there's a school department,
Exactly.
there's a phone.
There's an
If-
office.
There's an office,
Yes.
right? Call there, then if you need to.
Exactly.
I mean, we went through school
Exactly.
How
without
did
cell
you
phones.
Without cell
manage?
phones.
Yeah,
How did you manage
Exactly,
before?
before.
Ah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Cell phone.
Exactly.
So-
And here it is, we're telling you that phones damage your child's brain.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
and you should know if you're not keeping up with what is happening around the world, you should.
And then we can
Everybody-
provide links. We can provide links for
Exactly.
it. It's showing,
Exactly.
the physiotherapist said, sorry, our business are doing well. They said kids are coming in, teenagers are coming in now with issues with their spine, their back and stuff from the curvature because they're sitting for hours, and then they're going home, and then they're back on technology again. So it's just not good, and I'm glad what you said about the Germany
Yeah.
and the other countries. And so we're not talking anything very far-fetched here. All right, we talked about, okay, hairstyles. Hairstyles, another recommendation, yes, we have pride in our stride. Yes, we have that. But again, parents are allowing children to do that. What effect do you think that's having on the kids when they go to try to go get jobs? The kids are come ruffian, look like they woke up and they never cut their hair, never combed their hair, nasty old, rough old, dang-a-lang-lang-lang, nasty stuff, unkept, and then, what do you think with the
Well, definitely most
Employment.
workplaces have a dress code
Yes.
that you have to adhere to.
correct?
So some of the students will be in for a big surprise if they think they
I
can
know
just
employers, yeah.
apply for a job and that their employers are going to hire them looking the way they do. And I strongly feel that schools should set the standard
For parents.
for you're preparing kids for life, the real world. I'm not suggesting by any means that boys should go to school with shaved heads,
No, but
you
just,
know,
just cut well,
but
grown.
yeah, it should be neatly styled. Yes.
Well, we see
If they have long hair, it should be in a style that looks neat and tidy. Your appearance matters.
for sure.
Yeah.
Lasting impressions and first impressions are very, very important. And it's already bad enough that we are segregated by the color of our skin here in this country, even though this is a Caribbean country, and 80% of us are dark toned skinned. Our skin tone is very dark, and then we may have that 20% that is a mix and a bit more beige or more peachy, what I would say. We already have that racial barrier being pushed in our country. especially in the jobs.
Yep,
And
yep.
if our kids are not going to have that high standard of education and have pride in their appearance when they go in for a job interview, I can tell anyone, especially if they are my complexion or darker, they're not going to get through the door because
Yep.
we already got too many barriers set up in this
Against us.
country
Oh, yeah,
against
right,
already.
right.
So yes, I do believe that young men, their hair should be neatly groomed and cut. Their parents want to keep their hair long. It's not in no Rastafarian looking curved up style, but it is neatly plaited or none of puff in their head with a ponytail either.
Yeah.
It should be neatly plaited and close to their heads, and for them to keep neat and tidy when they're
Yeah.
going into school.
Well, that's the only thing though. Here's what they started allowing is neatly plaited, and then they took it to another level.
Yes.
Then they said the kids started wearing it where it's down in their face, and then the teacher said, "But you can't see." Oh yeah, 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 fine. I can see. You can't tell me that the neatly plaited has got out of hand, got out of hand at all, got just totally got out of hand.
And then cut
So
it.
they cut their hair. We grew up like that. Because we got a Rastafarian culture. This is supposed to be a Christian society, guys. This is supposed to be a Christian society. But what you have now is a dreadlock society, guys.
Yep.
Are we not gonna have anything that resembles Cayman? Like seriously. So yeah, it got
Yeah.
to be. I mean, we grew up again with men cutting their hair, keeping their hair looking well.
Exactly. Well, a lot of our young men, of course, went and took up the idea from Jamaica.
Oh, the Jamaican guy laughed at me.
Yeah,
He told me
yeah,
that.
the
He said, "We come
Rastafarian
here."
culture.
There you go.
You know,
The Jamaican guy said,
Yeah.
"We started this." And he
Yes.
said they all caught on.
exactly.
Which is
Everybody
true.
took it.
Why
It's
are we
not us.
copying other people's?
That,
Why we don't have our own identity?
Yeah,
Why
we're not,
not?
proud. We're not proud of ourselves.
We're
That's
not.
right.
We're not
We're
proud
not.
of our culture.
We're not.
Yeah.
And
We're
you
not.
know, we come from humble beginnings. We were kind and we let everybody in. We did everything for everybody. We gave everything to everybody.
Yeah.
And instead of everybody embracing us the same way that we embraced them,
Right.
what they did is actually spat in our faces as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But then a lot of them too, they laugh because they're like adopting us instead of
Yeah.
we coming in and being part of your culture. You guys are becoming us, and they're laughing about it. So anyway, another thing, a backup. What do you think about the homeschooling, Ms. Maria? For those that might think about Marie, for those that might think about homeschooling kids, what do you think about
Yeah.
some of those curriculums?
Yeah, but no, definitely homeschooling is an option and it works, but it requires monitoring. Who's going to be monitoring it? You know, a system would have to be set up and in place. Somebody overseeing the students that's being homeschooled, but definitely it's an option. It's an alternative to the way that some students are being educated now. So it is something that could definitely be explored, but like I said, it would require someone setting it up that knows what they're doing, and then once it's in place, definitely somebody has to monitor it. But it's probably a much cheaper alternative than what's some of the that's in place right now. For example, these behavior units that are set up,
Not
the
working?
Francis Bawden Girls Home
Yeah,
that
not
is
working.
always causing a problem that's not working. So it is something that should be looked at.
Right.
Correctly.
And I mean, I think all we need is a church hall. Just use a church hall, get the curriculum, and we can get volunteers to facilitate to monitor it at different times of the week.
I do
You know what I
believe,
mean?
I do believe we need that. Yes, we need parents need to understand if they want help and they want their children to be successful, right? They've got to put in the effort. If they're not going to willing to take an extra hour off to help go through that curriculum with their kids and do homeschooling or have someone that do it, what I've seen happen with a lot of our Caymanian people now and Caymanian parents is they always want to drop their children to someone
Oh, yeah.
for someone else to do it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that is what's causing us to also fail because somebody else must take on their responsibility.
Responsibility.
When you
Right.
become a parent, that's what you should have done, and you should know that you're setting yourself up for a long term job.
Job.
Okay,
Full time.
full time.
Yeah.
And you needed to have that drive and that appetite and that aptitude actually to want to help your kids
Right.
and to make them stand out. And I understand that life is hard, it's difficult. Some people are not having jobs, they have to be on NAU. But still don't give up. We need to have, I think the Department of Education or the Ministry of Education need to definitely have their hands on board with helping parents get to that, get the services they need. And it's going to take longer. One chief officer for the Ministry of Education is definitely a no-no. It needs to have two. You need to have one there that's going to have policy and just deal with policy and making sure to enforce policies. But you need to have one there that is really on the go, not sitting in an office, in the schools,
In the schools.
every
in the
day,
schools, in the
showing,
schools.
making sure that a school is coming up to standard.
Mm-hmm.
They're working. They're actually on the ground
On
with
the ground,
parents,
on the
meeting
ground.
with parents,
On the ground.
meeting with children. And that chief officer needs to have two deputies that is going to work with her. She's not going to, or he's not going to be sitting in an office, but they're going to be on the ground in
At
the
the
schools
schools, at the
to
schools,
make a
at the
difference.
schools, yeah.
That is a plan that I've always wanted to talk to the minister about. However, I haven't been able to reach him. I've seen him at a couple of functions, but he hasn't
But
been
we have
able.
the staff.
Yeah.
We have the staff. What are we all
Well,
doing
we do
sitting
have
up in-
staff,
we have the
but
staff,
we
but you're
need
sitting
parents.
up in the you're sitting up in the glass house. That's
Yeah.
number one. Get, like you said, get on the school.
Yes.
Down in the schools.
Yes.
And parents get on board with the system,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Stop teaching the kids to be
Yes.
defiant from a young
Young
age.
age,
And
exactly.
if you all don't like it, take and put them in another school then.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so that's another thing we're going to have to talk about. We're going to have to, as a community, start talking about either alternative school over abroad, military or whatever, for parents and children who can't comply with the rules. Because in a job market, you guys cannot dictate the terms of contract, right? There's terms and conditions. If you all don't like it, take your kid and send them to another school. And if the kid is running about a community, yes, as a society, we're going to have to now start thinking about alternative, whether it's in England, whether it's in the UK, Cuba, Jamaica, or whatever. You're gonna have to send these kids to another school where if the kids are defiant and the parents are defiant, the parents do not want to learn by the school rules, go by school rules. They think it's okay. Their kid gotta have a cell phone. They think their kid gotta do what they want to do. We need another school. We need to have another school overseas. Got my point?
As an option.
As an option, because there is parents and there is students that are very defiant and rebellious. Okay.
I've said for many years that we should have had a program with London, since we are under London, for our kids that are defiant, they can't handle them, to actually have them join the Royal Army,
Good point.
the Royal Marines,
Good idea.
the Royal Air Force, the Coast Guard, Royal Coast Guard, so
Good
that
idea.
these kids
You're
can
in discipline
be disciplined,
from
number
a
one.
young age.
Be disciplined, number one. Number two, to give them hope that
True.
they can become something
Somebody, yeah.
in their life.
Good idea.
Number three, that they can come back and be the speakers and be that light to shine
But the-
for the other generations that are
Correct.
coming up. So I have said that for years, that we need to have that talk with London. We've followed everything with the United States, and some of it now are not positive. We see a lot that is coming out now that is not really positive.
Right.
So, but we're still under the United Kingdom. We're still a British colony. Let us get together. That's why I am so on Prince Harry's side. He was put on the front line, and he went to war for his country. And although there are people that are meddling in his family's business, I do believe that he's being shortchanged because he worked for his country and he stood on the front line in war on more than one term. He was not just on a ship or in a helicopter on land somewhere. He was actually on the front line in battle, and he earned those medals, and those medals should be returned to him. And I do believe that I'm going to write a letter to King Charles very soon regarding it through our dear governor. But I do believe that if you've earned something, we should respect that. We have had one or two of our young men here that have joined the United States Army, and they're well trained. Not sure of how many tours they've done, if they did one or not, but I do believe that is definitely an option, and we need to implement it. And parents need to be on board. If not, they should be fined, because
Exactly.
your
If you don't like
child,
it,
as
if
the
you don't like
Bible
it.
says, idle hands, idle hands becomes what your future is going to
Correct.
become. And that is either you are going to become involved in drugs, or you become a
Gang
gang
member.
a gang member, which is for killing and murdering and
Right.
stealing
Right.
and
Any-
hurting people, or you're going to be that extra
Burden.
person and burden on our society
Yeah.
by wanting NAU to give you
Everything.
a handout. I don't want handouts. I want my people to come back and remember what their great grandfathers, grandmothers, their grandmothers and grandfathers worked. This West Bay Beach, the condos here, this was part of their game. This was part of who they were. They kept the beaches. They made the road from Georgetown to West Bay with a grinder and just a machete in their hands. Okay?
Yeah.
My uncle Varian was one of those. He's now 96 years old. He's one of those. Okay? And going back, my grandfather, Duxie, was one of the first catboat builders. Very proud, very humble, uneducated. And of
But we're
course,
good with their hands.
but we're good with their hands, and also he taught himself music, and that's why a couple of my first cousins, Pastor Alson, his
Okay,
brother
yeah.
Leighton,
Dewey.
Mitchell, Dewey, and them, they all have the gift with music.
Exactly.
I love piano, but I haven't started learning. I was in class with Miss Tanya, but I didn't like it at the time. But now I'm very proud to say that my lineage, my grandfather's, coming from my grandfather's lineage, music made a big difference in their world,
Right.
and it helped.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it, guys. We put forth some of those recommendations that we would like to see put forth for education. We need parents along to assist us and assist the government who's trying to put in new things in the school system to help our children. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was all the suggestions we wanted. Anybody else?
Yes, my final comment to the minister who I've worked with and is a family member. Separate education from your financial obligations. I do believe that
Too
needs to
big.
go
I thought,
right.
yeah,
That
yeah.
needs
Too
to go
big.
back where
That's
it was
hard.
for many years under the financial secretary. Whilst the
That's hard.
Premier has financial services, you can still have your hands in helping with the team of the financial secretary to keep an eye on what needs to be happening in our finances.
Right.
But for you to have that on education, minister,
And
all
finance.
of your Caymanian staff was removed. All of them were removed, and you need to speak to all of us that were removed and hear our side, so you will understand exactly what happened to us. Don't listen to one person, especially one that did not make a significant contribution to education. Remember, I started a new revenue stream in education, which brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where is that today? It is nil and void. And you must hear the sides of the 20 odd people that were removed from that ministry, why they were removed, and how they were removed, how they were treated, so you will get the full score. If you don't, you are doing yourself a grave injustice. And number one and final word to you, separate education. To bring it back, go back to some of these people that are still fairly young, that has a bachelor's and master's in education. Go back to your cabinet and say, we must put in place protection plans, that once I put something in place for our schools and to bring education forward with Caymanians at the helm, it will not be destroyed by any other government. it's in place unless there's grave injustice and misconduct going on that you have to remove your Caymanians. Because what the damages that are happening right now, we have too many of one nationality in our schools. And that is also a grave
Wow.
injustice to our culture and to where the progress is heading for our Caymanian children. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Martin. You want to say anything else? 'Cause I know-
Yeah,
ahead.
well,
Cameras.
education reform has to take place at this point.
Of course.
And we do realize that it is quite a big ministry that he has. So I trust that he'll be able to manage finance and education
Huge,
at the
huge,
same
huge.
time.
Yeah.
But we definitely have to get education back on track because what has been allowed to happen in recent years is not good at all, to say the very least.
Alas, it was a disparity.
Yes, we've gone backwards in many ways.
Yes. All
And
is hard work.
as for our community, as for the Caymanian community, our citizens, we definitely need to do more to elevate them. There is no reason why we should be in this state with so many people receiving handouts.
And money.
And because
And
we,
you-
And finance.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
it's so it's no reason for us to just be keeping our people down, which is what is happening. We're keeping them down. Let's lift them up. Let's elevate our people. Let's get them feeling good about themselves. Let's get them being productive citizens. Give them jobs. Create jobs for our people. Let them feel productive. So there's lots of work to be done, but we live in hope that things will get done.
But you agree, though, that parents need to get on board
Yes.
with,
Definitely.
with the school and with the minister when they try to get stuff. Stop
most-
cussing
Has
out
to
the
be.
teachers.
Most
definitely.
Stop being defiant. It's teaching kids bad principles.
That's right. Most
So
definitely.
parents need to get on board.
Yeah.
Definitely, parents needs to get on board.
Needs.
Mr. Anglin, you said
Or
that
just
no
talk to her,
children would be left behind. For you to accomplish that great task and feat, you need your Caymanians back in that ministry. You need many of them that brought you to the point where everybody spoke up and said you were the best minister that I've ever worked with. I worked with several. I worked with Mr. Roy Bodden. I worked with Mr. Truman. I also worked with Sir Alvin. I worked with Tara Rivers. And I worked with you. And all of them brought something to the table. Some really brought a minimum standards to the table. I won't go down a list, but I will tell you, and I will sing it again. I've been singing your praises for months of how you were involved with parents. You spoke to them, you got them on board. And I need you to understand that prayer and our godly and Christian principles is something we need back in our schools.
Right now we got
Last-
a dreadlocks culture. Sorry.
Last but not least, please bring in a pastor. Either my cousin Dewey, or was a deacon at the church, or Pastor Darren Haylock, and I want him to bless the office that you are in. Have him pray over that office. People can mock me, they can laugh at me. I am here because of the grace of God. Because when I got hurt in the ministry doing your last SMT meeting, I've had 3 major surgeries. The first one took me to death door with a blood clot in my left lung. I can tell you how many people called me, how many people remembered me for all that I did. But I'm saying to you, do not forget God in
Right.
this journey. Have someone come and pray in that ministry. Cleanse that ministry because there are permeations of stuff that you don't understand. And I'm telling you, you need to have someone clean that ministry with the word of God. Whether you want to do it with the whole team, which I think is the best, or you want to do it privately. But I do believe you need to bring God into that ministry. Because I'm telling you, there's stuff that went on there. This wasn't good. So I hope and I wish you all the best, Minister. But like I said, you need 2 chief officers, and you need God on board, and you need to have your parents, and you need to have your Caymanians that were educated, that we, this country, gave money to go abroad and study, okay, to come back into that education department and do what they were trained to do, and that is to elevate, to nurture, to educate, and build back the Caymanian society. Because right now, it is not Cayman that is running us.
Right.
There are other nationalities.
Right. And again, parents, get on board with the school and the new minister. Stop teaching your kids to defy school principles. So we'll end with that because I think our camera here is probably out of time and out of, so we'll end now.
Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
having us.